Hi, good day. For today's video tutorial, we're talking about the overview of financial statement audit process. But before we go to the major discussions or topic, we will discuss some important notes in connection with our topic. So first is the objectives of an independent audit. So number one is to obtain reasonable assurance about whether the financial statements, these are the assertions made by the management, are free from material misstatement. Yung reasonable assurance, we will discuss this further while we go discussing this topic. And also the assertions, no? What are the assertions made by the management? That will be discussed on the next topic here. Then the second objective is to express an opinion on whether the financial statements are prepared in all material aspect in accordance with a financial reporting framework. So yung material aspect na naka-bold letters here, i-discuss natin to further as we go along. The number three, to report on the financial statements and communicate as required by the PSA. So the PSA means Philippine Standards on Auditing. This is a standard that are being implemented in conducting an audit. So remember, in the preparation of the financial statement, the accountant are using the standards coming from PFRS, so Philippine Financial Reporting Standards, and PAS, and some interpretation. The PAS is Philippine Accounting Standards. But then, regarding to the audit procedure, we follow the standards from PSA, the Philippine Standards on Auditing. So in accordance with the auditor's finding. All right, so we discussed that as we go along, yung PSA numbers, no? So now, the second topic is the management assertion as have discussed on number one. Yung financial statements, these are prepared in the assertion of the management. So management assertions are the inherent claims made by the management of the company with respect to the recognition and presentation of different elements of the financial statements of the company which are used for the audit of those financial statements. So while doing the preparation of the financial statements, habang nag-transact sila, so they are applying some assertions that they believe na tama yung ginagawa nila, no? Ng lahat ng mga procedures to come up with the financial statements are in accordance with the standards, the PFRS and the PAS. So according to them, okay, so assertion nila yon, yung management. Now, remember, on the number one objective is to obtain reasonable assurance whether the financial statements are free from material misstatements. So therefore, papasok ngayon si auditor, itetest niya yung management assertion. Whether conforming talaga dito sa established criteria. Or if there's an error, material ba yung error na yon para mag-change or maka-apekto sa decision ng isang reader ng financial statement. So moving forward, they involve procedures usually used by the auditors, no, yung pag-assess ng management assertion to test a company's guidelines, policies, internal controls, and financial reporting process. So ito, tinetest nila to, yung mga guidelines, accounting policies, yung internal control, no, in producing or in para kumbaga in support to the preparation of the financial statement. These assertions are the explicit, pag sinabing explicit expressly, or implicit, implied, no? Representation and claims by the management of the company during the preparation of financial statements of their company. Now, in conducting an audit, there are different categories of assertions that are being used by the auditor to attest the management assertions. No? The categories are number one, yung audit assertions related to account balances. Number two, yung related to classes of transactions. And the last is related to presentation and disclosure. So, natatandaan natin to. These are the major categories in audit assertions, no? In order to test the management assertions o yung financial statement made by the management. Okay, on number one, audit assertions related to audit or to account balances, we're using the the mnemonic, CERB, CERB. So yung CERB, ang ibig sabihin nun, in terms of the account balances, complete ba yan? Existing ba yan? May right and obligation ba yung company dyan? At papaano siya na value? Okay, yun yung tinetest natin. So, completeness, existence, rights and obligation, and valuation. So, in terms of audit assertion related to account balances, usually, these assertions are generally about the end of period balance sheet accounts such as assets, liabilities, and equity balances. And that is why, for every definition of this assertion, makikita mo sa asset and liabilities and equity balance topic. So, for example, completeness. It refers to the fact that the assets and liabilities and equity balances which need to be recognized have been recorded in financial statement. So, nag-present ang management ng financial statement in accordance with the related to the account balance, in accordance with the completeness. Lahat ba ng nakalagay dito, yung asset, liabilities, and equity balances, are talaga bang na-recognize and recorded in the financial statements? So, yun, tinitingnan natin yung completeness. Ang existence naman is, yung nakarecord ba na assets and liabilities and equity and balances mentioned in the books really exists at the end of the accounting period. So, in terms of existence, guys, pinoprove natin yung existence ng asset, liabilities, and equity sa financial statement. So, the auditor sometimes doing some ocular inspection in order to see whether the certain assets are talagang nag-exist, no? For example, kasi may mga pagkakataon kasi na ang mga companies, they put ghost property, plant, and equipment in order for the financial statement looks good, no? Ang tawag dito yung window dressing. So, bakit nila ginagawa to? So, ginagawa nila ito para syempre magmukhang maganda yung financial statement, no, in terms of the balance sheet. Mas malaki ang assets, so therefore, may capability siya na mag-produce ng certain capacity naman sa producing the volume of sales. So sometimes, if they want to bid for something that is big, that has a big project, no? So they present financial statement at pinapakita nila doon, malaki talaga yung asset nila at they have the capacity to produce a big project. So, ang problema, tama ba talaga nag-i-exist yan? O, that is why yan pumapasok si auditor o para talagang ma-attest yung management assertion nila regarding doon sa existence ng isang property, plant, and equipment. So, same manner, yung iba pang mga accounts, no? Ganun din ang principle. So, letter C is the rights and obligation. No? In terms of rights, may ownership right ba yung company dyan sa nakapresent dyan sa financial statement? Or yung obligation ba dyan na talagang yan true value? No? Talagang may obligation ba sila? So, ganito, yung asset, sabi natin, pinapataas. How about the liability? O sometimes, pinapababa nila yan. Tulok talaga na mas maganda yung financial position ng isang kumpanya. No? So, ginagawa ito dahil may they have a personal motive. For example, they want to secure a loan from a bank. So, yung bank naman, syempre, titignan itong financial statement nila in terms of in the view of the financial position. Kung magandang asset, kukunti ba ang utang or something like that. So, from that financial statement, they can draw a decision, no, or a decision to lend a money for them or to reject their application. So, kaya nagiging familiar sa atin na sometimes yung mga ibang kumpanya nagpapagawa ng mga window dress na financial statement in order for them to secure a loan, no, from the bank. So, ngayon, diyan pumapasok ulit yung auditor. No? So, kapag pinirma ng auditor yan, supposedly, dumaan sa kanila at nakita nila na they have the reasonable assurance, no? Yung mga auditor na fairly presented talaga yung mga account balances dito sa financial statement na may ginawa ng management. Then last is the valuation. No? So the asset liabilities and equity talaga bang properly valued as per reflected in the financial statement. So number two is the audit assertions related to naman sa classes of transactions. I use mnemonic here, COCA, para madaling tandaan. COCA, parang frog. Okay, so income statement accounts naman yung dinadali dito. No? So COCA means completeness, occurrence, classification, accuracy, then cut-off. So completeness, lahat ba ng transactions na nakalagay sa financial statements really recorded, no? So complete talaga ba siya? Okay, so paano nagiging complete to? Sa mata naman ng kunwari sa mata naman ng BIR naman, nagpapasa sila ng mga one of the user kasi is the government, which is the BIR. The company is required to pass the ITR, income tax return, no? So in computation of the income tax return, so the basis of the income tax is the net income. So to compute for the net income, sales minus expenses equals net income. The sales, no, para ginagawa ng iba, ina-under-declared nila yon, no? To make, para naman, kung maliit ang sales, lilit din ang net income. Okay? So, yung sales, kung halimbawa, makikita ng auditor yan, kasi yung mga sales invoice naman, is may sequence yan, no? Pre at stamp numbering, no? Pre-sequential series. So kapag may nabungi doon na number, so they will assume na hahanapin ng auditor to, nasan po itong serial number na to within that range. So walang lusot dito yung company na ay hindi natin po na-report yan, no? Kaya something like that. So in terms of completeness, maganda to sa presentation ng sales na dapat complete, no? Na wala tayo, hindi tayo nagdadaya in terms ng computation ng income tax. Letter B is the occurrence, no? Occurrence, no? Paano ba ang nito? Occurrence. So sa Tagalog is nag-occur ba talaga? So yung mga transactions na record ay talagang nangyari. Okay? Letter C, classification. So, kina-classify natin mabuti yung mga accounts sa financial statements. So, in terms of this statement of comprehensive incomes dito sa income statement, meron dong portion na expenses. No? Yung expenses kasi, they are categorized into the indirect expense, which are yung mga cost of sales, cost of services, or cost of goods sold. No? And those are the direct expenses. Then also, we have the operating expenses. No? Operating expenses naman, furtherly subdivided into two, general and administrative, saka yung selling expenses. Now, the bottom line is, in recording sales, we must classify it correctly. No? Kasi may mga pinupuntahan. No? Let us take example for the payroll, yung labor. Okay, the employees are getting salaries from the company. The employees has a different categories, no? Employees doing directly related to the operation of the company na sa production. And some employees are doing in the office, no? In general and administrative. And some employees are in the selling field. So, depende sa kanilang mga trabaho, you classify the expenses, no? For example, yung nagtatrabaho sa production, yung pasweldo dyan will become part of the direct labor, no? Which is the part naman sa pag-compute ng cost of goods sold if it is a company or manufacturing company. No, if it is a service type company, yung direct labor naman na mismong nasa field para yung nagkakandak talaga na mismo ng service. No? So that will be part of the cost of service. However, yung mga sweldo doon sa mga nasa opisina doing general and administrative work, the expense related to salaries and wages will go to the operating expenses, no? Not to the direct expense, no? To the cost of sale or the cost of goods sold or cost of services. It goes to the operating expenses. Meron yung mga tax implication, lalo na kapag corporation, may epekto yan kung sa computation of taxation in terms of gross income. So the gross income, in the view of the BIR, is sales minus cost of sales, and that is the gross income or the gross profit. So, yung gross profit na yan, merong mga taxation dyan. No? May implication, for example, the company is availing the optional standard deduction, OSD. So, therefore, liliit yung tax base kapag properly recorded yung cost of sales, no? Or cost of service or cost of goods sold. No? Kung naipasok doon yung direct labor, so therefore, lalaki yung expense, then yung base ng gross profit, liliit na lang. Okay? So, may mga tax implication yan. That is why, binabantayan din ng auditor to, yung properly classification ng accounts. Letter D, accuracy. So, obviously, dapat accurate yung mga naandyan ng mga balances. No? For instance, any adjustments required have been correctly reconciled and accounted for in the statements. So, ayun, simple lang naman yan, accuracy. Then we have the cut-off. It refers to all the transactions that have been recorded in the appropriate accounting period. So, ito yung medyo maselan kasi may mga rules dito, no? Lalo na pagdating doon sa pagbabalue ng mga ending, no? Yung December 31 ng mga balances. If your calendar period is ending December 31. So pagdating kasi ng January 1 na, iba ng transaction na magko-close na yung book. So, halimbawa, cut-off in terms of sales, no? Yung in terms of the delivery of the sales. For example, meron tayo dyan, papasok dyan yung principle ng mga FOB, no? FOB shipping point, FOB destination. So, along the way, yung delivery, so sino ba ang, kailan ba i-declare yung sales na yan? Okay, so may rulings tayo dyan. So, at the same time, kapartner naman yung inventory, no? Sino ba ang magiging may-ari na ng inventory? Yung sa mga delivery point, no? FOB shipping point or FOB destination, no? Noong panahon ng December 31, no? Kayo ba natin ito i-record? O something like that. So may rulings doon. Hindi naman natin i-discuss ito habang ating video tutorial. So those things, yung cut-off, are important. No? Kasi palalo na pati sa mga ano rin. So marami pa dyan ng mga pang-cut-off ng mga topics na kailangan saan at kailan ma-recognize. No? Pati yung collection, no? Receivables. So, something like that. Pati yung check payments. Yung mga ganyan, kailan mo siya recognize. So, merong mga rulings dyan. So, we move forward na lang. Number 3, yung audit assertions naman related to the presentation and disclosure. Ang mnemonic na ginagamit na dito ay COCA. Actually, ako lang gumagamit. Ewan ko yung iba. So, COCA yung ginagamit natin dito. So, para madaling tandaan, yung isa ay SERBI, tapos COCA, tapos COCA. Yung COCA naman, completeness. So, again, number 1 lagi, parang may completeness. Yung pangalawa, may completeness. Pangatlo, may completeness. Then yung letter number 1, letter A, may completeness. So, all of the assertions, lahat may completeness hinahanap. Okay? So, dito naman, ito naman presentation and disclosure. So, remember, yung elements ng financial statements, yung panglima doon, yung notes to the financial statement. So, napaka-importante rin yan. So, because doon dinidisclose yung mga further information pertaining to certain accounts. So for example, ang line item sa balance sheet nakalagay doon cash and cash equivalent. So in terms of the presentation disclosure, may note doon, no, naka-refer to note ganyan, makikita mo gano'n. Note 4, note 5, kunwari. So pag pinuntahan mo yung note 4 pertaining to the cash and cash equivalent, nakalagay doon, cash and cash equivalent consists of cash in bank, in BDO, cash in bank PNB, cash on hand, so other things, no? Ayun ang component ng cash and cash equivalent. So nakikita natin sa notes doon sa in terms of disclosure. So ngayon, ina-assess din natin 'yan, no? Ina-assert din natin 'yan whether yung notes ay complete. So kapag sinabi sa presentation disclosure completeness, it's all about transactions, event balances, and other matters that should be disclosed in the financial statements and confirm their appropriate disclosure. Dapat kompleto. Yung sabihin niya. So, occurrence, classification, understandability, accuracy, and valuation. So, madali naman itong basahin, no? At intindihin. So, please, pakibasa na lang. Alright. So, classification, understandability. So, yung understandability dito, yung classify mabuti, then yung presentation mo should be understandable. No? Maintindihan naman pag unang sala, maintindihan. So, ngayon, those are important topics, no, need to be discussed before discussing the major phases in audit process. So, titignan natin yung linkage niyan mamaya as we go along. So, phase 1. So, there are, before that, there are 5 phases in my outline. No? Sa mga ibang aklat, may 7, may 8, may 6, may 5 din. No? So, but I assure you na kompleto naman to even though shorten lang. No, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, phase 5. Actually, 3 lang talaga yan. You know? Yung phase 1, yung the preliminary, then second is the test procedure, then pangatlo, yung report na. So, but in my outline, 5 ito. No? Okay, so we go to the phase 1. So, phase 1, preliminary engagement activity. So, pag sinabing preliminary engagement, hindi pa nangyayaring engagement. So, or kung nangyari man, ito na yung ginagawa muna bago talaga mag-conduct ng audit. Yun ibig sabihin ng preliminary engagement activities. May dalawa dito syempre na scenario. The first is if recurring audit. Kapag sinabi natin recurring audit, tayo yung dating auditor, so uulitin lang natin na mag-audit uli doon sa kumpanya na yun, sa same company. Then we have also the second scenario is if new client naman. No? So parang kumbaga may gustong company na gusto tayong i-hire, kunin yung service natin as an auditor. So new client siya. So anong gagawin natin? Okay, I better discuss first itong new client. No? Then kasi kapag new client na, pwede na tayong pumunta uli. Pagtapos natin sa new client, pwede na tayong pumunta dito sa recurring. Magiging simple na para sa atin. Okay, kung bago ang ating magiging kliyente, anong unang gagawin natin? Siyempre, obtain an understanding of the client and its environment. So, if you go further, you want to go further reading, so you must refer to the PSA 315. You just Google it, no? And this PSA 315 discusses the obtaining the understanding of the client and its environment. So ano ba ito? No? The objective here is to determine whether the auditor is qualified to handle the engagement. And then secondly, to evaluate din naman whether the client FS are auditable or not. Okay. So, or whether the client has the integrity. No? Parang ganun siya. So, una, ah, tungkol sa qualification, kung kaya ba natin i-handle engagements. Ito yung mga preliminary assessment. Yung one, competence. Number two, independence. Number three, ability to serve the client properly. These are the evaluation for the auditor, no? Kung kaya niyang i-handle yung bagong client. So, yung competence, una. The auditor's skill and competence to handle the engagement. So, hindi naman lahat ng company pare-pareho. So, we have the different industry. Dito na ipapasok yung mga audit in specialized industry, no? So, kapag mga specialized industry, medyo kailangan mo talaga dyan na magdalawang isip kung tatanggapin mo yan. Kung wala kang competence para tanggapin yan, wag mo nang ituloy. Or pwede mo naman ituloy kung gusto mo mag-aral, pero you must increase your competence. Or you can hire expert, no, para dito sa pagkandak ng audit na to. So before let us continue discussion, no? So yung auditor skills and competence to handle the engagement. So kailangan mong alamin sarili mo na kaya mo bang i-handle yung engagement. According to the PSA to 2020, 220, 220, this is all about the quality management for an audit of FS. Ito, particular to sa audit team. So may team siya, hindi lang siya single, kundi maramihan, team nga. So pagdating sa kapag may team ka, syempre may mga supervisor dyan. So mag-assign ka ng personnel. Yung i-assign mo personnel, sabi dito, should have the appropriate capabilities, competence, and time to perform the audit engagement. So tatlo yung requirement. Then, of course, afterwards, yung mga personnel nito should be sufficiently directed, supervised ng supervisor. Siyempre, meron ding review of work. Okay, panare-review nila yung trabaho ng kanilang personnel. So that is the one of the requirements sa PSA 220. Yung PSA 620 naman, okay, dito, you determine whether you will hire an expert in order you to guide, no, in conducting an audit. Ito naman ay magiging guide lang or consultant. Ang syempre, ikaw pa rin yung primary responsible dito if you're going to accept the engagement. No? So PSA 620 using the work of an auditor's expert. So lumalabas lagi ito kapag ang audit mo ay specialized industry. Then number two, independence. O tanong na naman ito doon sa auditor. Auditors independent or must have, hindi lang independent na pinag-usapan dito, ang component niya, independence in mind and independence in appearance. No? Whether adequate safeguards can be established to counter the threats. So, let us talk about the independent. No? Independence in mind, saka independence in appearance. Independence in mind, talagang totally nasa utak mo, magiging independent ka, hindi ka magiging bias, magiging objective ka lang sa pagkanda kung ano yung audit evidence, ano yung resulta ng audit evidence, yun ang lalabas sa report mo, and that is being objective. No? Walang mga bias dito. Kapag naman independence in appearance, ito nakikita sa katawan mo, sa kilos mo, no? Kung talagang independent ka. Baka nakikitaan ka ng lagi kayo nakikipag-usap sa management, malambing, or sa whatever, or tumatanggap ng regalo, no, nakikita ka. So, independence in appearance siya. So, dapat magkasama to. No? Hindi lang independence in appearance, kundi pati sa sarili mo, alam mo na independent ka. Okay? So, ang threats nito, kapag wala kang, yung independent, actually, mahirap yan ipakita. Dahil may mga threats siya. Okay? So, ano-ano yung mga threats na ito? Number one threat is self-interest threat. No? So, ang mga example nito, all about conflict of interest, close business relationships, gifts and hospitality fees, etc. Ano ibig sabihin mo? So, self-interest threat. Yung auditor, na nadidefer yung independence niya in terms of conflict of interest. For example, pagsabahin na natin yung close business relationship. No? For example, itong auditor na 'to ay meron siyang, separate business na kung saan supplier niya yung, magiging audit engagement na company, 'no? So ngayon, since na siya yung supplier dito, major supplier, so kapag na-audit niya 'tong company na 'to, meron siyang, at the back of his or her mind, eh, kung pangit ang maging resulta ng audit, maaari na sisihin siya at tanggalin sa pagiging, supplier, 'no? So ngayon dun yung, papasok yung conflict of interest. Teka, kailangan, magpasikat ako dito sa kumpanyang ito kahit na anong resulta, 'no? Kahit kung pangit man, papagandahin natin. So ang tawag doon yung self-interest threat. Gano'n din yung close business relationship. Supplier ka, tapos siya ay customer mo, yung company na yung audit mo. So problema natin yan. Problema yon, no? Tapos yung pagtanggap ng mga gifts, tapos hospitality ng kumpanya. So gumagaan yung loob natin, na-impair yung ating objectivity, o yung independence, I mean. Yung mga fees, baka minsan, ito naman kabaliktaran, kapag mababa masyado, kumbaga, kinuripot ka yung pagbabayad, tawad ang tawad. So malamang yung trabaho mo ngayon, medyo, ano lang, konti-konti lang. Pero kapag masyadong mahal, ba, teka, magandang kliyente to, pagagandahin natin itong ating report, no? So, self-interest threat yun. Self-review threat. Saka yung familiarity, pwede pagsamahin na rin ito. Self-review threat. So, you are currently member of the company being audited. So, paano ka member ng company? So, independent auditor ka, so meron ka separate accounting firm, tapos at the same time, empleyado ka dun sa kumpanya na yun. Ang problema niyan, ikaw pa yung gumagawa ng mga data for audit. So, ang mangyayari, self-review ang mangyayari. Ino-audit mo yung sarili mo, no? So, syempre, kapag may nakita ka, halimbawa, ay, in-audit ko yung sarili ko, tapos may nakita ka eventually na may mali pala sa ginawa mo, eh malamang sa malamang, itago mo na rin yun kasi mapapahiya ka eh. Ako gumawa nito, tapos mali-mali pala. No? Yung familiarity threat naman, dati kang accountant doon, tapos marami ka na naging mga kaibigan, no, doon sa kumpanya nito, or member ka ng board of directors. So eventually may impair yung independence mo, no. Yung mga decision making, maapektuhan, pati yung result ng audit maapektuhan. Syempre, marami kang mga friends doon eh. Letter D, intimidation, no, threaten about something, no. For example, independence, no, kapag hindi ka ang masyadong demanding yung client, no, ang gusto kong result niyan dapat maganda kasi uutang ako sa bangko eh, parang ganyan. Kapag hindi mo nagawa yan, eh, sa susunod din na namin kukunin ikaw. O kaya, kung meron namang problema dyan, sige, kakasuhan kita. So, yun ang problema. So, tinatakot-takot ka. So, paano mangyayari? Yun, self-threat yun, no? Intimidation, no? Maaaring ma-impair yung independence in mind or independence in appearance. The last is yung advocacy. So, masyado kang clingy doon sa company. Baka kasi pinangakuha ka ng something, no? Sige, tataasan. Yung kung ang fee mo, dodoblehin namin, no? Kapag maganda yung report mo. Parang gano'n, no? So, syempre, promote mo na yung company. Oh, napakabait ng company na to, something like that. So, ngayon, paano mo masa-safeguard yung independence, no? Mula doon sa mga threats na nabanggit natin. So, una is identify the threat. Ito ba ay self-interest threat na bagay? Or self-review threat ba yan? Familiarity threat ba yan? Or intimidation? Or advocacy? Once na-identify na natin, so whether to accept or reject the engagement. If you accept, na number 3, syempre, kailangan i-document yung threat na na-identify. Then, ano yung mga safeguard procedures na pwede mong i-apply para ma-eliminate yung threat or reduce the threats to an acceptable level. So, for example, the best niyan is Kunwari, grupo kayo ng auditor, no? Team kayo. So, ikaw yung supervisor. Yung member ng team mo na nalaman natin na meron siyang close business relationship doon sa yung audit na company. So, ang gagawin ng supervisor diyan, itatabi mo na siya. O sige, sa ibang company ka na lang mag-audit. No? Papaltan ka namin kasi may threat no? Kung sakasakali. So, yun, one of the ways, no? Para ma-safeguard yung independence. O kaya naman, talagang totally tatanggalin siya. No? Papaltan ng iba. Now, if ever na hindi ma-eliminate yung threat na yan, okay, so wala lang, no way, talagang ito na yon. So, ang gagawin natin is, you better withdraw the engagement. So, pasensya na po, may impair yung independence namin kasi yung boss, yung may-ari ng boss po nito, actually, uncle ko or tita ko po, no? Close ho kami nun. Baka, syempre, kapag in-audit ko yan, meron siyang, kumbaga, familiarity threat. Saan hindi ko na maalis kasi ako lang naman yung auditor dito. O kaya marami sa team, no? Naku, wala nang replacement yung auditor na yon. Kundi pag-isipan natin kung paano pa. So kung wala na talaga maisip, we better withdraw the engagement. Now, preliminary assessment. Sa pangatlo, ito rin yung sa mga auditor din to, no? Ability to serve the client properly. Okay, ito yung kalimitan nagiging problema kapag mga tax season, maraming mga companies ang naghahanap ng mga auditor. No? So sa dami ng halimbawa, ikaw, auditor ka, or isang grupo kayo, marami na kayo engagement, tapos may darating na naman na isang engagement. So titignan nyo sa sarili nyo kung kakayanan nyo pa ba na matapos yung report before the submission or the deadline of the filing of the tax. Baka hindi nyo magawa o tanggap kayo ng tanggap, problema yan, no? Yung ability to serve the client properly. O kaya naman, kukunti na lang yung mga staff mo, no? So, hindi ka nakakapunta doon sa client for audit field, umabot na yung malapit na yung deadline, saka ka pala pupunta doon. So, kandarapa na yan. So, magpapanik na yung client, baka hindi na umabot doon sa mga deadline. So, yan yung mga tinitingnan natin. So, if may ability tayo to serve the client pa, so better accept the engagement. If not, kapatin nyo na lang yung client natin na wala na po kami wala na po available na manpower para i-deploy sa audit, no? Audit field. So, malamang po, baka matagal kami at hindi namin ma-meet yung deadline na magiging agreement natin. So, better to tell the truth, yung scenario natin. Okay, yung pang-apat is the integrity of the management. Ito naman, no, tapos na tayo sa auditor, no? Check natin kung may integridad ba yung management. Paano ibig sabihin ng integrity? No? Yung integrity, sabi diyan, kailangan natin mag-conduct ng background sa prospective client natin in order to minimize yung likelihood of association with clients whose management lacks integrity. So, yung pinaka-reason natin dito, because as we have learned sa mga professional ethics, no? Tayo, we don't want to be associated with those clients lacking of integrity dahil maapektuhan din yung integrity natin sa sakali. Madadamay tayo dyan. So ngayon, paano natin yan ina-acquire? So making inquiries of appropriate parties in the business community. Okay, tanong-tanong lang tayo. Kamusta tong company ito? Mabait pa yung mga yan? O kaya, paano ba sila kumikilos? Problema ba sa environment yung product nila? May ganun scenario no? Kapag nagtanong ka sa mga kapitbahay, ay nako po, napakaingay mo ng kumpanya niyan. Ang lakas, ang ingay ng makina, hindi kami makatulog. O kaya, ang baho ng waste product nila, hindi nila inayos. So something like that na mag-double think ka na tatanggapin ko ba to? Baka isa sa mga pagalitan din dito. O kaya awahin pa ako. No? O kaya naman, mas better, kausapin mo yung sinundan mo na auditor na pinaltan. Pero before you do that, is i-communicate mo muna doon sa may-ari, no, or doon sa board of directors na makipag-communicate ka doon sa dating auditor. So ang reason nito kasi engagement, meron dong disclosure policy, no, ikaw nangangako or professional ethics ito na hindi mo sasabihin kung ano man yung mga nalalaman mo doon sa kumpanya. Kasi open book yan eh, no? Kapag nag-audit ka dyan, unlimited restriction doon sa mga records nila. So may mga bagay na makikita ka doon na secret. So hindi pwede siyang ikwento no, sa mga iba pa. Not unless may mga bagay na pwede mo ilabas, i-disclose yung mga ganyang bagay. Pero yan eh, may mga kondisyon. Pero kung wala namang problema, so you better keep your mouth shut, no? Not unless hingi ka ng, halimbawa, nandun ka na doon sa auditor na dati, nag-uusap na kayo, nagpakilala yung bagong auditor, ako po yung bagong auditor, tapos nalaman po namin kayo yung dating auditor nito. Ano po kayang naging problema? Ba't kayo umalis? Or ano po kaya yung mga pwede naming tips nyo para mapabilis yung audit namin, no? Based on your experience. So something like that. So now, may mga bagay na tatanong na syempre personal or talagang trade secret or whatever. So itong dating auditor, before magsalita yan, hahanapan ka ng letter no, na nasa katunayan na binibigyan ka ng authority na ma-disclose sa kanya kung ano man yung mga bagay na kailangan niyang malaman, information. So kapag wala ma-present, sinabi lang, ay teka, pinayagan na po ako ng ng may-ari. Hanggang sa maaari, usually dapat nakasulat, no, written. Kung yan ay verbal lang na sinabi, o sige, pwede naman. Medyo magdalawang isip ka doon dahil pwede kang ma-sue or makasuhan dahil sa pag-disclose ng mga information. So, mag-ingat tayo dyan, no? Mga dating auditor na nagsasabi na kung ano-ano mga information. So, yan yung professional ethics natin yan. Okay. So, afterwards, you proceed to audit planning. Kapag natapos mo na itong A, yung understanding the client and its environment, proceed ka na doon sa audit planning. Yan yung bago, no? So, since na tapos na tayo dito sa bagong client, no, if new client, we go now to go back to the condition and the scenario is recurring audit. Okay, kapag sinabi natin yung recurring audit, again, kayo na yung dating auditor nito at ngayong taon na ito, nag-request ulit ng audit. So, hindi ka basta-basta tatanggapin yun, no? So, kailangan mo una babalik ulit, mag-evaluate mo yung continuing client. Evaluate mo, syempre, yung sarili mo, again, as an auditor, saka yung company na yung audit. So, baka nagbago sila ng mga bagay-bagay or may bago silang mga product or industry process at naging bago sa iyo yan. So, titignan mo kung kaya mo pa bang i-audit to. Kung okay naman, tuloy-tuloy lang tayo. Pero syempre, yung integrity uli ng management, no? Kung karapat-dapat ba to na continue. Kasi sa mga prior engagement, malalaman mo naman yan eh. Yung kung ang company ay, say, based on your experience, ano ba nangyari sa akin nung i-audit namin kayo dati. So, wala akong nakatulong. No? Yung mga staff, hindi ako pinapansin. Dahil nagre-request ako ng report, puro late. O kaya, yung nire-restrict ako, no? Ayaw akong bigyan ng bank statement or whatever sa mga request ko. Dapat yan, unlimited access yan eh. Tapos, makipag-meeting ako, hindi na atin yung manager or something like that. Teka, magiging nahirapan ako dati, tatanggapin ko ba ito? So, mag-iisip ka na. Now, if everything is okay, then you continue engagement. Gagawa ko ulit ng engagement letter para to proceed with the new audit engagement. Then, syempre, letter B, nandito na, no? Yung parang kanina, yung client, nandito na tayo ulit. Sa audit planning na. Audit planning, then preliminary planning. So, ito ay under the PSA 315. Ang topic niya yung obtaining sufficient understanding of the entity and its environment, including its internal control. So, ito, medyo ano na to, no? Kanina, yung understanding the client and an environment, yung sa new client, syempre, pahapyaw-hapyaw lang yan. Wala ka pang nakukuha mga records yan eh. Dito to totally sufficient na to, no? Obtaining sufficient understanding na talaga. So lahat ng records, so mga business permit, SAC, documentation, certification, GIS, kung ano-ano mga bagay na pang business, no? Ay kailangan natin i-check yan. Okay? Then, isa pa, syempre, kasama doon yung internal control, no? kailangan mong intindihin yung internal control dahil napaka-importante nito kasi yung internal control, these are the policies, no, made by the company in order to control its assets or transactions or whatever. So, later, as we go along, madi-discuss naman itong internal control. The objective of this one is to create an audit plan. So, ano ba objective ng understanding the client again? Tapos, kumuha ng sufficient understanding. So, sabi dyan, syempre, to create, at the bottom line here, is to create an audit plan that will serve as a specific guidelines to be followed from conducting an audit. So it helps the auditor obtain sufficient appropriate evidence for the circumstances, helps keeps audit costs at reasonable level, and helps avoid misunderstandings with the client. So, napaka-importante. Lahat planchado na bago magsimula. So, paano ka mag-obtain ng understanding sa client? Sa PSA 315, about the industry, accounting policy sa internal control. Tapos, then afterwards, the auditor will prepare overall strategy for performing the audit. So during the planning stage, yung auditor establish an understanding with the client as to the nature of services to be provided and the responsibilities of each party. Now, this is ordinarily accomplished through use of an engagement letter. Yung sinasabi natin kanina, puro engagement letter. So ano bang nilalaman itong engagement letter? So letter A is the objective ng audit. Okay. Yung objective ng audit, alam naman natin, tatlo sa taas. Yung management responsibility, yung pag-prepare ng financial statement. Yung pangatlo, scope of the audit. So yung scope of the audit, depende yan sa tatlo, nature, timing, and extent. So nature, paano ba yung audit mo? Timing, gaano ba yung paano mo yung audit? Kailan mo yung audit? Kailan ka magagather ng evidence? So something like that. Yung nature, time, and extent naman, gaano ba ang procedure mo, no? Gaano ba ka-extensive ang procedure mo in terms of audit, no? Tapos letter D, reports that the auditor expect to use. So ano yung mga reports na ine-expect nilang matatanggap ng client. Disclaimer about discovering material misstatement due to fraud, no? Because of some limitations. So dinotify na natin kaagad yung management na totally ay hindi na yung mag-detect yung lalo ni fraud. Sila nga hindi na-detect sila nila araw-araw na andyan Ikaw naman, auditor, ngayon ka lang pupunta, taon-taon lang. So, pero pwede ka pa rin kumbaga mapapasama sa sisi kung di mo ginawa ng tama yung audit procedure. Kumbaga, naging negligent ka sa pag-gather ng evidence. So, natural, talagang di mo makikita yan. Pero kapag maganda yung gathering ng evidence mo, malamang madamay mo to kalimitan nakikita. So, kailangan mo i-communicate sa management. Okay, responsibility of the client to allow the auditor to have unrestricted access to all the records. So, ito yun, no? Nakalagay yan, naka-specify yan doon sa engagement letter na dapat ako ay may access sa lahat ng records na kailangan natin para mabuo natin yung audit. Then last, kasama rin dapat yung billing arrangement. So, yung iba kasi nahihiya sige, pag-usapan lang natin sa susunod. Kaya pag-usapan lang ganyan. Hindi, specify mo, magkano ba to? Magkano yung single namin? Magkano ba yung ganyan? So, para sa susunod, para sa darating na panahon at natapos mo na, alam na in-expect ng client yung sisingilin mo sa kanya. Okay? So, may asterisk dito, no? Ano ba yung ibig sabihin ng overall strategy? So, develop an overall audit strategy. Ang ibig sabihin yan, the overall audit strategy represents that auditor's general approach, yung mga general approach ng audit to achieve the objectives of the audit. So, as set out in the agreed terms of engagement. Kung ano yung engagement mo, ano ba yung objective, ayun yun. At ma-reach yung goal na yan. It contributes to ensuring that the audit is planned so that it will be performed in an effective manner. Alright, so plano, parang guideline yan. Pero ito major overall to kumbaga, ano ba yung gagawin natin? Overall strategy. Meron kasing audit plan pa, talagang detailed yun. So overall audit strategy, dito, sinusulat lang natin ano ba ang how much evidence accumulate. Later, didiscuss natin paano mag-gather ng evidence, no? At gaano karami. So, yan ay sa audit sampling. So, kapag gumagamit tayo ng sampling method, kasi hindi naman totally lahat ng items o transaction ng isang company ay kailangan natin i-audit. Kaya mapapansin mo yung sa number 1, no, na objective, yung reasonable assurance. No, tatandaan mo ba yun? Yung reasonable assurance na ang magiging report mo, since hindi siya absolute. No? Kapag absolute assurance, talagang i-audit mo, talagang itataob mo lahat ng dapat itaob, makita mo dapat makita. So dito naman ay sampling lang, no? Representation of the total population. Kunwari, ang total population of the transaction is 1,000. So hindi mo na lahat yun i-audit, yung 1,000 yun, kundi pipili ka lang ng mga siguro, mga 10%, 20%, 30% of such population. Okay. Kasama dyan yung how and when this should be done. So in terms of the timing, no? Kailan ka magsisimula, kailan mo i-audit ng bagay na to, o something like that. So, pati yung timing. Saan na tayo? Okay, letter C, yung materiality and audit risk preliminary assessment. So, may preliminary assessment. Under the phase 1, gagamit ka na ng preliminary assessment ng materiality sa audit risk. Itong assessment na to, mamaya makikita mo na naman sa other phase, no? On the later phase, makikita mo na naman itong assessment ng materiality sa kanang audit risk. Okay. Then you perform analytical procedure. No? Ito, analytical procedure during the phase 1. Mamaya, lahat kasi ng phase papasok tong analytical procedure. Lalo na pagdating sa substantive testing. O later, discuss natin yan. So now, technically, ano ba yung materiality? By definition, sabi dyan, information is material if its omission or misstatement could influence the economic decision of users on the basis of the financial statement. So these are a matter of professional judgment. So ang materiality, kapag yung pagtanggal or pagkamali ng isang bagay na yun o figures, ay makaka-apekto ba yan sa desisyon ng user? Okay? So, ayun ang materiality. For example, ang company ay has a volume, no? Sales volume of 100 million. 100 million. Okay? Ngayon, nalimutan na, upon the audit, nakita mo na nalimutan nila yung entry ng isa na pagbayad doon sa PLDT. Ang worth ng PLDT ay worth 2,500. No? Ang sales mo is 100 million. Then nalimutan yung expense na 2,500. So tingin mo ba, sasabihin mo yung financial statement na ginawa ng company, ng management ay mali na? O, teka, may sinasabi tayong tolerable mistakes. No? Later, madidiscuss mo yun. So kasi hindi siya material. Mapapansin mo doon sa objective natin, nung bumabalik tayo sa objective, no? Ano ba yung objective natin sa pangalawa, yung expressing an opinion to the materiality, no? To fairness of the financial statement preparation. And no material misstatement has happened. So, hindi naman material yung pagkamali o hindi na pagka-record ng 2,500 na PLDT billing. Okay? So, you might suggest, no, ito po, nalimutan nyo. So, pwede namang, entryhan nyo na lang po, adjustment. Di ba, baguhin nila yung financial statement. So, okay lang yun. Pero, halimbawa, no time na para mag-adjust. Ako, hindi ko pwede, mag-i-issue ako dito ng pangit na report. Doon lang sa immaterial na 2.5. Okay, so, I hope you get me. Now, in terms of materiality, largest amount of misstatement that the auditor tolerate in the FS. Account balance, level, tapos merong FS taken as a whole level. So, account balance level, so magkano ba dito ang amount? Nung nilalagay tayo dito ng benchmark para sa atin. Professional judgment on. Ano kaya ang largest amount na pwede kong i-tolerate na pagkakamali or misstatement? Per account. Okay. Yung kabila naman, magkano kaya ang benchmark ko na ito-tolerate na pagkakamali ng kumpanya in totality ng financial statement. Okay? So, for example, on C1, yung largest amount of misstatement. So sa bawat account siguro, pero minsan pa iba-iba naman yan. Halimbawa, depende sa account eh. Halimbawa sa cash, hindi hanggang 5,000 na pagkakamali, okay lang sa akin. Pero pag tumaas na sa 5,000, medyo kailangan ko na talagang bigay, mag-notify, no? Na baka material effect, may material misstatement to sakasakali. Yung smallest aggregate amount naman, no, in totality, hanggang sabi natin hanggang 20,000 in totality makita kong error or deviation. So hindi ko na siya tatanggapin. Okay? Parang ganun. And then 20,000 below, okay lang yan. Something like that. Then also define yung audit risk dyan. So what is audit risk? Audit risk is the risk that the auditor gives an inappropriate audit opinion on the financial statement. The auditor cannot possibly expect to detect all the misstatement. Alam na natin yan kasi reasonable assurance using sampling. Therefore, in the assessing the audit risk, the audit designs appropriate audit procedure to ensure the risk will reduce to acceptably low level. So, alam natin may audit risk, no? Yung audit risk is a rate kung gaano ka confident. For example, ang result ng audit risk is, kunwari lang, is 20%. So therefore, 80% confident ka na magiging tama yung report mo. So 20% baka sablay, parang gano'n. Audit risk. Now, for further discussion about the audit risk, nandito yung audit risk model. Audit risk model audit risk is equals to inherent risk multiplied by control risk times detection risk. So, tatlo to. So, kailangan mo itong aralin mabuti. So, inherent risk. Ito yung component ng audit risk, no? Inherent risk. Inherent risk muna tayo. Ano ibig sabihin ng inherent risk? Sa word itself, no, inherent na naandun na kumbaga present na talaga lagi. Kahit na there were no related internal control. So, ano ba ibig sabihin nun? Kalimitan, so makita mo sa example para maintindihan mo. Due to management integrity, industry characteristics, susceptibility of the account, then complexity of calculation. So to better understand, we take up the susceptibility of the account to theft, yan actually. So yung may mga account balances natin, for example yung cash, no? Hindi natin basta-basta iniiwan niya sa table or something like that kasi mainit sa mata yan at medyo kailangan may mga nakakailangan kupitin. So bagamat may control, no? Kung kahit na may control, may in terms of connivance, no? Pwedeng magganon mangyari, no? Kaya nga meron pa rin mga kahit na napakaganda internal control, nagkakaroon pa rin ng fraud or misappropriation dahil may mga connivance. So itong inherent risk is wala din natin pinag-usapan dito ang internal control. Basta inherent lang, no? Doon sa account na yon na prone to theft or whatever. O for example, yung inventory. May mga ibang kumpanya nakikipag-collide doon sa guard, no? Halimbawa, may mga maliliit na mga parts. May mga importanteng parts show, may gold or silver na may bumibili. So sa liit na yon, minsan binubulsa nila o kaya para hindi ma-detect nang maging bulag-bulagan yung guard paglabas nila. Kinakapkapan kasi yun paglabas eh. So sometimes nagko-collide sila sa mga guard. No? Meron ka dito. Pag nabenta natin. Sige, ayos na. Parang gano'n. O, labas ka na. Yun yung problema. So ayun yung sinasabi inherent risk. No? Yung due to management integrity, ito, yung management itself, binibreak niya yung mga rules. O kaya, talagang siya pa'y nag-initiate na gumawa na isang masama. No? Kaya, madidislocate ngayon yung mga figures dito sa ating financial statement. So, isa pa yung complexity of calculation. So, inherent na yan. No? Paano ba computed? Halimbawa, paano ba computed yung interest expense na to? Baka masyadong complicated para ma-compute. So therefore, nagkakaroon ng mistakes pagdating sa posting ng mga figures sa financial statement. So, yun ang mga inherent risk, no? Susunod yung control risk. Ito, may nag-usapan na dito yung control. Merong existing internal control. However, yung existing internal control ay hindi gumagana or hindi ini-implement o talagang binabypass ng mga management. So ngayon, hindi talaga makakapag-detect or mag-prevent ng any errors or mistakes. No? So one of the example, hindi na pala, mamaya na lang yung example ng mga internal control. So pagkamat may internal control, ibig sabihin itong control risk, the risk that still a material misstatement will occur because the internal control implemented there is not working or cannot prevent or even decrease the risk of material misstatement. So something like that. So detection risk, yung pangatlo. Detection risk is in auditor side na to. No? So yung yung dalawa kasi yung inherent sa control risk, sa management yan sa company yan. So wala tayong magagawa dyan kasi sila naman ang implement yan. Ang magagawa mo lang dito na adjustment, yung detection risk. So ano ba yung detection risk? Auditor substantive procedure will not detect a material misstatement. Yung substantive procedure, later i-discuss ko yan. Ito rin nasa audit proper yan. Dalawa kasi procedure major, no? Yung test of internal control sa katong substantive testing. Later maintindihan mo ito. So ngayon, kumbaga, sa audit procedure mo, through testing, hindi mo na-detect na there is a material error. Kaya detection risk ang tawag dito. Kasi nga, gumagamit tayo ng sampling lang, hindi naman lahat totally. Kaya lang ang problema, later makikita mo yung problema. No? O sample na is, halimbawa, nag-sampling ka nga, tapos yung nakuha mong mga sample is not truly represents the totality of the population transaction. So nagkataon magaganda pala yung napili mo tamang maayos. So you can conclude, o siya, sige, pwede na itong, you can rely on the internal control or whatever. O kung ano man yung nakita natin. So, example of audit risk model. ABC company operates in a sector with complex and extensive regulation. So, inherent risk is especially high. Yung complex nga eh. So, automatic yan, yung inherent risk yan high. Especially since the company has a large network of related entities that hasn't correctly interpreted on the financial records. Right away, inherent risk niyan, mataas. Given the lack of internal audit team, so mayroon kasi minsan nag-hire tayo ng internal audit team. No? Iba ito external. Pinag-usapan natin dito tayo external. Kumbaga, in-engage lang tayo with the mission na mag-audit sa buong taon. Hindi naman sa buong taon, sa buong taong transaction. Okay? Ngayon, yung internal auditor, employee ng company yan. Empleyado ng company. Kung saan they doing the audit para to ensure internal control nga para ma-ensure talaga the operation goes smoothly, then no errors or whatever. Okay, sabi dyan lack of internal audit. So you can conclude syempre ang internal control nito ay high risk pa rin. So parehas na both high inherent sa yung control risk. Then, i-assume mo naman, detection risk, sige, mga 20%, something like that. Yung inherent and control risk is 70% and 70%, at sa'yo, detection risk 20%. So, if you're going to calculate yung audit risk is equals to 0.70 times 0.070 times 0.20. So, round off 10%, 0.10. No? So, that means audit risk is 10%, and therefore, you are confident that your audit will give a 90% reasonable assurance. Okay? Reasonable assurance in terms of expressing an opinion to the fairness of the financial statement made by the management. Audit strategy. So, ito to give way, no? Ano bang purpose natin kung bakit natin preliminary na-assess yung internal control? Okay? So, syempre, para Kaya nga gumagawa tayo ng audit plan o yung overall strategy. Ang objective pala kung bakit ka nag-perform ng preliminary assessment during this phase 1 is ma-design in overall strategy kung anong gagawin mo in terms of nature, timing, and extent. So nature, timing, and extent. Okay. In terms of nature, if you assess preliminary assessment, internal control has a high risk, ang gagawin mo dyan, magde-develop ka ng audit plan, less yung control test. Yung, ano to, actually, this is a phase 2, no? Yung phase 2 dito sa ating outline. Yung control test procedure. Konti lang. Tapos, babanat ka sa substantive procedure sa phase 3. Ano ibig sabihin nun? Kung nakita mo or preliminary assessment mo na talagang may internal control pero not working, hindi na para ma-test yun. No? Kasi nga nakita mo na preliminary control, sira-sirang may internal control pero not working. May di malamang hindi ko na itetest yung internal control nito. Kung ano man maging resulta nito, i-expect mo, baka maraming error to, kaya pupunta na lang ako dun sa substantive testing. Yung substantive testing kasi, ito yung tinetest mo talaga per account, per balances, no? And using analytical procedure. So talagang isini-isa-isa mo na. Yung kanina, internal control test, internal control tinetest mo. Pero preliminary assessment to, hindi ka pa talagang magte-test. Assessment lang. So mag-observe ka lang dyan. Okay. Kabaliktaran naman kung in-assess mo na preliminary assessment na internal control risk o yung control risk ay mababa. Ibig sabihin, nakita mo working yung internal control. Ngayon, kung mababa ang risk doon, kailangan mo talagang i-test yun para talaga masatisfy ka na pwede ka mag-rely sa mga output, no, mga nilalabas na dumadaan doon sa internal control ng company. Okay. Then, kapag na-test mo na talaga, kasi nga magpe-perform ka ng more extensive doon sa test of control. Pagdating sa substantive testing na, medyo ka na dyan, cool ka na lang dyan. Konti-konti na lang, less extensive na. Kasi nga, magre-rely ka na doon sa internal control. So isipin mo, maganda itong internal control to, malamang lahat ng figures sa financial statement ay dumaan sa butas ng karayom at malamang tama na to. So, magre-rely ka na doon. So, ngayon, konti-konti na lang yung substantive testing mo. Kumbaga, pupulot-pulot ka na lang dyan sa sakali. Okay. That is in terms of nature. In terms of timing naman, kapag daw internal control assess sa high, kalimitan ginagawa ang audit procedure near the year end or itself near year end talaga. So sumasabay ka talaga dyan. Kasi yung sa cut-off, remember sa assertion, so tama ba ang pagka-cut-off itong mga to? So nakikisabay ka lalo na sa mga inventory, physical count, December 31 na doon ka talaga. Dahil hindi mo na maasahan yung internal control So dapat, paano ba sila bumilang? O kaya, paano ba sila mag-cut off? So nandun ka, subaybay ka. Okay, that is if the internal control assess preliminary at high level. Okay? Ang kabaliktaran naman ito kapag ang internal control ay in-assess below, no, low risk. So pwede kang mag-audit na kagad kahit interim pa lang, no? So, ibig sabihin ng interim, hindi pa dumating yung December 31, September pala, October or November, nag-audit ka na dahil you rely on the internal control na makukuha talaga yung cut-off ng mga valuation. Kasi nga, maganda yung internal control. So, yun ang kabaliktaran naman. Pangatlo, in terms of extent, in terms of audit evidence gathering, kapag daw high risk yung internal control, ang sample size mo dapat mas marami. Larger sample size. Kabaliktaran naman kapag ang internal control ay assess preliminary at low level, so ibig sabihin low risk, So medyo small na lang, smaller yung size kasi nga uh, you rely on the internal control. Okay. So afterwards, so kapag nakapag-preliminary assessment ka na, then you conduct also a preliminary analytical procedure. Then lastly, on the preliminary phase, yung develop ng audit plan. Ito yung bottom line sa phase 1. Develop a general strategy and detailed approach for the specified nature, timing, extent of the audit to audit in an efficient and timely manner. This document tells what procedures an auditor will follow to validate that an organization is in conformance with the compliance regulations. So, procedure to, guideline. Paano may kakandak ang audit. So, audit plan. Okay? So, okay na tayo doon sa recurring audit under phase 1. At tapos na rin naman tayo dito sa new client. So, we now go to the phase 2. Perform test of control. Ayun, no? After na establish mo audit plan, so magsimula na tayo. Mag-perform na tayo ng test of control. Balik tayo dito kapag sinabi natin yung preliminary assessment ng doon sa taas pa yun. Preliminary assessment ng internal control. If it is high or low, so yung concept kanina, better understand that kasi sa mga board examination, kalimitan tinetest yung knowledge mo regarding to that scenario. So sa phase 2, dito na, i-test na talaga natin yung control. No? So, objective, test of controls are performed to determine whether key controls are properly designed and operating effectively. So, yung internal control kasi siya yung set up ng management niya to safeguard the assets or whatever, mga procedures no, ng company in order to generate a reliable financial statement or records. Now, ano ba yung mga example ng internal controls? A, B, C, D, apat major lang, no? Kasi sa mga bawat account may mga internal control yan eh. So, talaga yung general. Una, yung information processing control. So, paano ka ba mag-process ng information? Dapat may control yan. O, for example, sinabi dito, yung ang company ay gumagamit ng serial sequence ng shipping document. So, lahat naman ng dokumento, mapapansin mo, naka-pre-numbered yan. No? May series yan. So, kapag ikaw, makikita mo kaagad yung completeness ng record kapag walang bungi doon sa series ng mga dokumento nila. So, that is a part of control. No? Kapag may nawawala na bagay, na number, so yung internal auditor, sabi niya, hanapin niya yan, asan to? Baka ginamit ko saan-saan to eh. Okay, sa mga cheque, una bungi, merong kuwari 1, 2, 3, tapos naging 7 na. Nasa yung 3, 4, 5, 6. So, malamang nagamit. No? So, makikita na kagad. Ayun ang kagandahan ng pre-numbered document. Okay? So, the purpose of the control in terms of information processing, talagang ang record complete. Okay? Magiging complete. Now, yung isa, yung check separation of duties. Sa malalaking kumpanya, this is a necessity na ng isang empleyado hindi pwedeng umawak ng lahatang ito. No? Ano ba yung mga apat na yan? Authorization or approval, recording, custodian, and reconciliation. Hindi pwedeng siya yung nag-authorize, tapos siya pa yung nagre-record, tapos siya pa yung may custodian, siya pa yung nagre-reconcile. So sa malaking kumpanya, dapat yan iwahiwala. Iba yung nag-authorize, iba yung nagre-record, iba yung may custodian, at iba yung nagre-reconcile. Okay? Pero kung maliliit na kumpanya, for example, talagang pang family business. So hindi natin inaasahan na mag-hire pa sila ng 4 na tao dito. Eh kung maliit na yan, usually ang nangyayari, yung may-ari para ma-safeguard yung separation ng duties, yung may-ari na mismo ang nagpe-perform ng lahat ng ito. One man band ang tawag. Sige, ako na lahat yan. Total, ako lang may tiwala dito. Ako lang, sa sarili ko lang ang pinagtitiwalaan ko eh. Hindi na wala na iba. Hindi ko na gumawa lahat. So letter C, physical controls. No? In terms of physical control, ito yung mga may lock na ang cabinet natin. Lalo na yung mga dokumento, yung mga OR, SI, mga check booklets, kung ano bang mga dokumento, nakatago yun sa cabinet lock and may susian. Kasi imagine, kung may mawalan ka ng isang booklet ng cheque, ba, teka, tapos kaya i-forge yung signature ng signatories noon, pwedeng makapagnakaw ng pera mula doon sa kumpanya. So, meron talagang custodian yan, separate. Check and monitoring. Importante rito, in terms of organizational structure, may nag-check ng ginagawa. For example, merong sa accounting staff, syempre may supervisor yan. So, dapat sine-check yan ng supervisor. So, check by supervisor or higher level. At yung supervisor naman, sine-check ni manager kung tama pa ba na nasusupervise niya mabuti yung staff niya. Then to manager naman, sine-check naman ng may-ari or the board of directors kung sa corporation. So, doon nagre-report at sila nag-check niya. So, yun. In terms of organizational structure, may check and monitoring, okay yun. Kung internal control yun. Okay. Ngayon, kanina, preliminary assessment ng internal control. So, paano ka mag-gather? Siyempre, inquiry, observation, inspection, and performance. So, madali naman to, no? So, inquiry, tanong-tanong ka sa mga staff, ano bang ginagawa dito? Paano ka ba mag-record ng sales? O paano tayo umu-order? No? So, sasabihin niya accounting policy yan. Then, observation, no? Upo ka lang dyan, titingnan-tingnan mo yung ginagawa nila. Tapos yung inspection, so, chine-check mo yung ginagawa nila kung sinusunod nila ba yung internal control procedures ng company. Tapos yung re-performance naman, ito ay, libawa, gagawin mo, yung ginagawa niya, try mong gawin kung may makita kang mali. Kasi sometimes, yung experience is sometimes, in terms, experience is the best teacher. So, kapag na-experience mo siya, doon mo nakikita kung ano yung mga pwedeng loopholes or whatever. Okay? So, note, after evaluating the result of test of control, so yun, kanina, preliminary, ina-evaluate natin yung test control. I-assess na natin yung control risk. Okay? The auditor should document his assessment of control risk. Ito yung preliminary assessment. Actually, hindi pa tayo, in-establish natin dito yung perform test of control. Okay? Pero later, yung mismong procedure niya, daan dito sa phase 3 yan eh. Nandyan, maghalo-halo na si dyan. Dito, diniscuss sa phase 2, yung performance test of control in terms ng preparation until such time na i-assess mo na yung risk, no, in terms of control risk. So sabi ko nga kanina dito is high risk yung internal control, so less internal control testing. So hindi mo na-test to. Mag-skip ka na, punta ka na sa phase 3 kagad. Kung hindi ka man mag-skip, mag-test ka na ng konting bagay lang. Then if it is low risk, teka, dito ka magpupursige ng internal control dahil gusto mo mag-rely doon sa internal control na lang. Dahil alam mo na kapag maganda internal control, alam na natin yung output nun, malamang sa malamang, maganda yung report. So, malamang sa tama. So, low risk, more internal control. Okay, the inversely related. Phase 3, ito yung audit procedure na talaga. Okay? So, perform substantive procedures in general. Okay. Dito na, ano ba ibig sabihin ng substantive? Ito na talaga yung bugbugan na trabaho. Substantive procedure, also referred to a substantive test, are used to substantiate account balance. So, para in support of the figures that have been presented by the management in the financial statement. So, supportahan mo ngayon yan. Kasi tayo, as an auditor, siya-check natin. Una, kung nagdududa tayo, skeptic na tawag doon. Hindi naman sa nagdududa. Ayaw lang na, gusto natin masatisfy lang na tama yung mga figures doon. So, paano magawa yun? Through substantive testing. So, substantive procedure, restrict, detection risk. So, kanina, kasama sa audit risk, yung component yung detection risk. Yung detection risk, yung risk na nagagaling sa auditor regarding sa detection ng material misstatement. So kung maganda ang substantive procedure mo, malamang hindi mo na poproblemahin itong detection risk. Kung di man, liliit yung rate nitong detection risk dahil maganda nga magagawin mong procedure. The risk that the audit procedures will incorrectly lead to a conclusion that material misstatement does not exist in account balance when in fact such misstatement does exist. So kapag pangit yung audit procedure mo, so malamang sa ng substantive testing, malamang sa malamang may lulusot, no? So, na mga audit evidence na magpapatunay sana na there is a material misstatement. Pero since na hindi mo siya masyadong nagawa, so malamang lulusot yan. Ang mag-express ka na opinion ngayon is there is no material misstatement. Well, in fact, meron pala. Okay? While test of controls, as noted above, provide evidence as to whether controls are operating effectively. So, substantive procedures provide evidence as to whether yung kanina, sa test of control, so tinetest nga natin no, talagang if working effectively. Ito namang substantive procedure naman, nagpo-provide ng evidence as to whether actual account balances are proper. The auditor's reliance on substantive procedure to achieve an audit objective may be derived from, so, two steps to procedure. Substantive analytical procedure. Then the second is yung test of details of account balances, transaction, and disclosure as they have described as follows. So, substantive procedure using analytical procedure. Analytical procedures used as substantive procedures are used to obtain evidential matter about particular assertions related to account balances or class of transaction. So, teka lang sir, account balances, saka classes of transaction. Di ba ito yung nasa taas kanina, una-una, categories of assertion? So, ginagamit ang substantive threshold kapag substantive analytical procedure para ma-assert itong account balances sa classes of transaction. Ano nga ba yung account balances? Review. Di ba ito yung CERB, yung CERB. Tapos yung classes of transaction naman ay COCAP. No? Yun. In this test, auditors gather evidence about relationship among various accounting and non-accounting data such as industry economic information. When unexpected changes occur or expected changes do not occur in this relationship, the auditor obtains explanation and investigation. So, paano ba natin papaliwanag yan? Analytical procedure, guys, gumagamit siya ng mga linkage sa mga bawat account. So, usually mga ratio. So, for example, yung significant changes. So, sometimes, titingnan natin yan, kino-compare natin yung result ng financial statement from previous financial statement. Kung 2023 and 2022. So, or even, mga prior periods pa, even 2021, 2020. Nag-establish tayo ng historical record. For example, ang sales noong 2022 ay, for example lang, is 100 million. Then pagdating ng 2023, biglang bumaba, naging 20 million na lang. So, yung significant change no, in terms of analytical procedure, bakit bumaba? So, magkakaroon siya ng red mark sa utak natin. So, lalagyan mo siya talaga ng red mark para subject to investigation further. So, kung through inquiry, observation, or through calculated performance, napatunayan mo naman talaga bumaba siya dahil sa halimbawa, nagkaroon ulit ng COVID-19, so pandemic, so talaga bumaba yung sales namin. Justifiable. Pero kapag hindi, nasa back of your mind kasi baka may error o kaya merong understatement of sales. Hindi na i-record. So yun eh. Hanapin mo baka may error eh. Ngayon kapag nakita mo wala namang error at justify, ay gawa ng pandemic eh, kaya wala kaming sales. So okay yun. Okay na. So we skip that. We go to the next red mark na in terms of analytical procedure na nakita mo. So for example ulit, significant change from receivable. Kunwari dati is 1 million, tapos tumaas, naging 10 million, for example. Teka, ba't masyadong nagtaas to? Eh dati-dati naman tinataas nito tag mga nag-average lang ng 1 million. Ba't ngayon naging 10 million na? So red mark uli yan. Baka may mali, no? Na posting. So, upon gathering of evidence, kapag napatunayan mo naman talagang walang mali, bakit? So, tatanong mo na po, bakit po dumami? So, malamang sabi, ay, nagkasakit po kasi yung collector namin, o kaya yung collection department namin, nag-alisan. So, halos walang gumaganap ng trabaho sa in terms of collection. Ganun ba? Pero mali yun. No? Dapat yung management, supposedly, papaltan ka agad yung staff. Kasi collection yan eh. No? Kapag naubusan yung fund, no? Halimbawa, hindi nakakolekta, kumakain yan yung sa fund ng company. Eh, paano kung naubusan yung fund? Eh, paano siya makapagpapasweldo ngayon? Paano siya gagastos? So, itong collection, dapat mangolekta. Okay? Dapat tinatrabaho talaga yun. Yung substantive procedure about the test of details of account balances, transaction and disclosure. Ito na, mga balances talaga. Iniisa-isa na. No? So, nag-gather ka na dito ng mga evidences from the source document or from external sources. For example, mga supplier, customer. So, nagtatanong-tanong ka na dyan. Okay? So, substantive procedure, test of details of account balances. Now, kayo ko pa binabanggit yung gathering of audit evidence. So, that is under the PSA 530. So, audit sampling, gathering of evidence, sasabi natin, hindi naman lahat kukunin natin. So, we are using the process of audit sampling. This is performed on the assumption that sample selected for testing is representative of the population. So, bawat pili natin, siyempre, assumption natin na talagang ito yung representative ng total population. Approaches in sampling. Okay, statistical sampling saka non-statistical sampling. Kapag sinabi natin statistical sampling, so ito yung kalimitan mga attribute sampling based on occurrence rate. Kapag naman variable sampling, yung variable, pabago-bago. Or random number selection, systematic selection, or haphazard selection. So, in terms of sampling, siyempre kumukuha tayo statistical, o for example, sa random, doon sa systematic selection. Merong population, transaction, na 1,000. Okay? So, pipili lang tayo by 5, by tens. So, yung transaction number 10, transaction number 20, transaction number 30, and so on, so forth. Yun lang yung isa-subject sa test. Kapag random naman, kung sino yung mapick mo diyan, kalimitan, pinipick nila dyan yung may matataas na figures. Para masigurado dahil significant yun, may material effect yan, no? Doon sa financial statement kung magkamali man yun. Okay, yung mga non-statistical sampling naman, so wala namang kinalaman sa statistical sampling. So, consideration in getting sample size. Paano ba tayo mag-gather ng sample size? So, tatlo. Yung meron tayo sinasabing acceptable sampling risk, tolerable deviation rate, saka expected deviation rate. Before we go to the definition, tingnan muna natin yung table. Yung sample size, in our professional judgment, di ba yung sinabi natin kapag small, we rely on the internal control. So therefore, in terms of substantive testing, konti na lang yung ating sample size. Okay? Kapag naman large, ay nakita natin na internal control ay high, So, therefore, hindi na tayo magpe-perform na halos doon sa test of control. Lilipat ka na sa substantive testing. And therefore, you need large sample size para makuha mo mas malaking range or what I mean is mas malaki yung chances na makita mo na if there is a material misstatement or error on the transaction. Now, given the fact, kapag ang sample size is small, ang acceptable sampling risk is high. Ano ibig sabihin? Sabi ko nga, kapag maliit yung sample na napili mo, malamang yung chances na sampling risk, yung acceptable sampling risk, ay malaki. Kasi ano ba yung sampling risk? Yung nakakuha ka ng representation, yung sample, mali. Ang high risk yun kapag small lang. Pero kapag large, ibig sabihin large, malaki. So mas malaki ang chance mo na may makita ka or maging reliant sa decision mo. No? We can rely on the decision kasi mas malaki larger size. And therefore, yung risk ng acceptable sampling risk ay mababa. No? Kapag tolerable deviation rate naman, kapag small, ang deviation rate natin tolerable dyan ay mataas. Okay? So, medyo para kumbaga patient tayo. Kapag small, sige, ang tolerable deviation rate natin mataas. Kasi nga, small lang yung sizes Kapag naman kapag large naman, kailangan medyo, since na marami ang population, so kailangan yung tolerable deviation natin bababa lang. Kung dati ay 10,000 na pag-mistake or deviation, worth 10,000 deviation, pababa, ay alaw ko na yan. Kung dati, kapag small. Pero kapag nag-large na, since na marami to, ang deviation nito hanggang lang to, hanggang 5,000 something. Or yung mistake na lang, deviation. Halimbawa, number of items, pieces. Kung wari 1,000 transactions, magkamali man to ng 5 lang, no? Out of my sample, hindi ko natatanggapin. Kapag yun ay large, low. Pero kapag konti lang, high. So, halimbawa, ang sampling size mo small ang small na sinasabi mo ay 100. So, ang gagawin mo, mga 90, no? So, yung tolerable deviation rate mo, mga 90, mataas. Kasi nga, konti lang yung pipili mong sampling size. So, therefore, yung tolerable deviation mo, mataas. Yung expected deviation rate naman, kabaliktaran. Okay. Kapag small daw, malamang ang expected deviation rate niya, yung pagkakamali per transaction, ay mababa, low. Pero kapag daw large, expect mo na marami kang makikitang deviation. Ayun na ibig sabihin nun. Kapag maliit ang size, expect mo, konti lang yung makikita mong deviation. Kapag marami naman, expect mo na mas marami ka makikita sana na deviation. So, naka-direct related naman to. Okay? Kabila yung dalawa, inversely related. So, yung definition, ikaw na bahalang bumasa. Deviation rate. May formula. Number of deviation over sample size. So, yung deviation, sinasabi dito, yung may error sa transaction. Kunwari, out of 100 sales invoice, may nakita ka doon 2 na error. So, ayun ang deviation. So, example, the auditor found 4 deviations out of the 200 sample. So, what is the deviation rate? So, 4 over 200, 2% ang deviation rate. So, further, may mga discussion about this one. Mula sa deviation rate na 2%, you can now project. You can now project to the other activities. Kung ang rate ito 2%, tapos meron kang, halimbawa, that is pertaining to the sales lang. How about yung recording ng expenses? Kung may 1,000 na recording of expenses, you assume deviation rate niya 2%. So 2% of 1,000, that is 20. 2% ng 1,000, tama, 20. 20 items na pwede possible na mag-deviate. Okay? Ayun ang importansya ng deviation rate. You can project. Compare the deviation rate to tolerable deviation rate. You have growth. Okay? So, yung tolerable deviation natin, kung ano man yung rate na yon, compare natin dito sa rate na nakuha natin. No? Kung ang deviation rate is less than tolerable deviation, yung tolerable natin rate. Kunwari, sabi natin 5% ang tolerable natin. At nakuha natin is 2%. So 2% is less than 5. Therefore, the auditor may safely conclude to rely on internal control. So sabi ko kasi kanina, sa phase 2, but nandito pa tayo usapan pa rin natin internal control. Kasi nga sabi ko nga dito sa phase 2, ito yung simula, no? But then you need to assess again yung internal control. So to assess that, ito yung sa mga deviation rate. Nakapag-perform ka na ng substantive test kasi dyan. Nag-perform ka na ng substantive testing. While performing substantive testing, you're determining kung talaga mag-rely ka talaga doon sa internal control. So now, during your substantive testing, tapos nakakita ka deviation rate ay 2%, pero ang tolerable mo ay 1% lang. Medyo strict ka. So greater ngayon, no? Deviation rate is 2%, then 1% yung tolerable mo. Anong kailangan mo? Tingnan mo muna if there is a room for adjustment or allowance. Baka medyo napaka-strict ka, ginawa mo 1%, teka, baka pwede ko pa mamahabaan yung aking pasensya sa pag-tolerate ng mga deviation. Pwede mo i-increase. Sige, gawin ko na mga 2%. So, equal lang, 2%, 2%. So, pwede yung mag-rely. Ngayon, halimbawa, kapag significant naman yung difference, ang tolerable mo is 5%, tapos ang nakuha mong deviation rate dito ay 20%. At teka, masyadong malaki yung hindi na ako makapag-adjust no? Hindi na pwede sa akin yung 20% na yan. Pwede pa siguro hanggang 10% tolerable ko. Pero 20% malaki na. So, anong gagawin ko? Decide kung magre-rely ka doon sa internal control. Okay. Substantive, nasa sampling risk na tayo. Sampling risk, possibility that the auditor conclusion based on the sample may be different from conclusion reached if the entire population were subjected to audit. So sampling risk, na-discuss na natin. Yung sampling risk, yung risk nga na ipagkuha mo doon sa mga sample ay hindi talaga pala representation ng total population. Yet, nasabi mo, sige, malamang ito yung representation. Pero totoo, hindi naman pala. So ngayon, types of sampling risk. So, importante ito. Dalawa, alpha risk saka beta risk. Kapag alpha risk, UR-IR to. Alpha risk. Ang mnemonic nito, UR-IR. Yung isa naman, OR-IA. ORIA. ORIA to isa, ORIR, saka ORIA. Ano to, kung makakagawa ka ng mas magandang mnemonic. So, ano ibig sabihin ng your ear, tapos ito naman, ORIA, no? Yung ORIR, no? Yung under reliance saka incorrect rejection. Okay, ano ibig sabihin? In terms of test of control, So no, sabi ko kasi sabay-sabay na to eh. No? May sa topic ng phase 3 substantive testing, may kasama pa rin internal control. The risk of under-reliance. So, alpha risk. Okay? Assess the internal control not reliable. So, ibig sabihin, high risk. No? When in fact, effective pala and can be relied upon. Ba't nangyari to? Dahil nga sampling risk eh. Nakakuha ka ng mga sample na hindi talaga truly hindi talaga sila yung representation ng population. So ngayon, based on your sampling, nakita mo, you can rely, pero hindi pala dapat. Kaya ang tawag doon, risk of under-reliance. Okay? Alpha risk muna tayo. Yung risk of incorrect rejection, sa substantive testing naman to, no? Pag kumbaga nire-reject mo yung material misstatement. So, in-assess mo na there is a material misstatement ng account balances when in fact, such misstatement does not exist. So, ano napansin natin? Puro negative tong alpha risk. No? Kanina, hindi ka nag-rely, pero in fact, can-rely na pa. Tapos sa substantive testing naman, after mo mag-perform ng substantive testing at nakita mo, wala kang nakitang there is a material misstatement kaya negative. Pero in fact, wala naman pala. So para matandaan mo to kapag alpha risk negative yan. Negative. And hindi ka nag-rely saka sinabi mo may material misstatement. Okay? Kapag beta risk naman, ito yung positive sana. Risk of over-reliance. So, over-reliance ka in terms of test of control, ang ibig sabihin nun, in-assess mo reliable. Tanggalin ko to. Assess reliable when in fact, ineffective pala. Okay, parang positive. So, positive, sige, in-accept, parang kumbaga nag-rely ka, pero negative pala. Yung kanina, negative, positive, negative, positive. Ito, positive, negative. Then positive, negative. Risk of incorrect acceptance. In-accept mo na assess material misstatement does not exist. So, wala. Walang material misstatement. Pero in fact, there is, does exist. Okay? So, positive, negative. Ayan, para matandaan mo yan. Ito, kalimitan lumalabas to sa mga board exam. Yung non-sampling risk, kanina sinasabi natin dito, non-statistical sampling pala yun. Ito na ay non-sampling risk. Ito, sampling risk. Yung reliance sa test of control, sa control, sa substantive testing. Yung mga non-sampling risk naman, so, wala dyan. Kundi, yung una is auditor failure talaga. Human error. So, halimbawa, nag-sample ka, hindi skip mo isang sample, hindi mo na nakita yung may mali pala doon. Pero then sinabi mo, okay, walang mali. Pero nabulag ka dahil pagod na pagod ka na. So human error yun. Okay? Non-sampling risk siya. Tapos yung inappropriate or ineffective audit procedure. Pangit yung audit procedure mo. Hindi mo detect itong hindi ka nag-perform ng substantive testing or whatever. So therefore, talagang hindi ka makaka-reach sa tamang conclusion. So, non-sampling risk. Audit evidences. So, audit evidence refers to information or data that used or collect by auditor as part of their audit works to conclude their opinion. So, audit evidence, wala naman mga evidence. So, sa ang importante dito, yung sufficient and appropriate audit evidence. Okay? Hindi lang sufficient. Ibig sabihin na sufficient, sapat. Kundi appropriate. At appropriate. Hindi lang basta-basta sufficient. Lahat ng sample mo dapat appropriate. Okay? So, audit evidence is obtained by auditor throughout all of the audit stages. Ito yung sinasabi natin kanina, 3 stage lang ito. Planning stage, execution stage, and conclusion stage. Yung planning stage, ito yung preliminary, phase 1 natin. Yung execution stage, ito yung phase 2 and phase 3. Yung, and even phase 3, no? Phase 3 lang. Yung conclusion stage, ito yung phase 4. 4 and 5. Ay, hindi pala. Sinama natin. Again, I'm sorry. Planning the phase 1. Yung execution stage is phase 2, 3, and 4. Okay. Yung conclusion stage is the phase 5. Yung pag-audit ka na. Pag-release ng audit report. So, type of audit evidence. Okay, so madali lang naman to. No? Pakibasa na lang. Then, yung procedure to obtain audit evidence. Ito kailangan mo intindihin yung principle na to. Dahil lumalabas yung mga true or false. So, in terms of audit inquiry, hindi pala. Procedure, okay, so lumalabas sa exam, pero madali siyang intindihin. No? Inquiry, observation, inspection, procedure, recalculation, and performance. So, pabasa yan. To obtain audit evidence. Ito yung sinasabi kong mas importante. Yung quality of audit evidence. External source versus the internal source o yung client produce. Siyempre, external source tayo is better. More reliable, more than obtaining from clients. Ibig sabihin. Kapag prepared by the auditor, kung sino yung siyempre tayo bida dito tayo yung nag-audit yung prepare ng auditor in comparison with the preparation ng management na data. Siyempre, mas reliable yung prepared by the auditor. Yung prepared by the client, yung mismong client, depende nga yan. No? Kapag na-obtain tayo dyan ng evidence in terms of internal control effectiveness, pwede tayo mag-rely. Sige, pwede. Reliable. Pero kapag wala, bulok yung internal control nila, hindi reliable yung source doon. Written form naman, kinumpare sa verbal, mas importante, syempre, written form. Hindi mo matatanggi yan, nakasulat yan. Kapag verbal, pwede mo itanggi. Okay? Original form versus ano naman to, copy. Syempre, mas maganda yung original form, reliable yung original form kaysa yung invoices. Alright, so on the phase 4 na tayo. Complete the audit, no? Auditor performs a number of procedures near the end of the audit. So near the end, no, matatapos na yung audit natin. So ito na yung completing na. So lahat, ginagather na natin lahat ng evidence, documented lahat yan. Ini-evaluate na natin para makapag-decide ng final decision. Di sa phase 4, ito na naman, analytical procedure na naman. So kanina, doon sa preliminary assessment, may analytical procedure. Pagdating dito sa test of control, meron na naman siyang test analytical procedure. Or sa substantive testing na pala, ito yun, analytical procedure. Then, pangatlo pa lang, dito sa completing the audit, may analytical procedure na naman. Para kumbaga, sige nga, mag-run through ulit tayo ng analytical procedure para baka may na-miss tayo dito. Parang gano'n. No? Parang overall na yan. Then, final decision na. Okay? Then, phase 5. Ito na. Dito na yung decision natin ilalapat. So, ang audit report, meron tayong 4 na klase. No? Unqualified, qualified, saka adverse, saka disclaimer. So, 1, 2, 3, 4. So by default, kapag maganda, there is a fairness na presentation ng financial statement and there no material misstatement, ang pinaka-the best na pinoproduce natin na report, yung unqualified opinion. Okay? Hindi natin, unqualified opinion. Yun yung pinaka-the best. Clean opinion. Now, wala tayong nakitang material misstatement. Now, yung qualified opinion naman, in general, wala tayong nakita na material misstatement. Except, so nagkakaroon tayo ng exception. Meron tayong particular doon na call attention natin kung bakit binabaan natin ng konti yung quality ng report, ng performance nila. Opinion natin. Okay? So nakaano pa rin yan, naka-design pa rin sa unqualified, tapos certain paragraph nagdadagdag tayo or nagbabawas to give way to the explanation why we issue qualified, not unqualified. So kalimitan, may mga balances doon o kaya sa disclosure lang nagkamali o something like that. So kaya ginawa mo lang qualified. Yung adverse naman, so ito talaga totally yung based on the audit evidence nung nag-gather, you come up na talagang lumampas na sa toleration mo, no? Hindi mo na ma-tolerate yung pagkakamali, yung material misstatement ng company. So therefore, you adverse ka na lang. Na talagang there para kumbaga, you express an opinion na the financial statement made by the management are all in material misstatement. Have material misstatement. Parang ganun. So hindi siya fair na yung presentation. Okay, so paano gagawin dito? Magsasuggest ka ng mga bagay-bagay na dapat gawin in order or adjustment in order to render your opinion na mas maganda. So, kalimitan, ginagawa ng client dito is, okay, adjust, then magpapa-audit uli sila. So, pero napakabihira itong adverse opinion. As a public practitioner, wala pa ako nakikita nag-report ng adverse opinion. Pero may disclaimer. Instead na i-adverse yung report nila, nagdi-disclaimer na lang sila. So kumbaga, hindi sila nag-render ng opinion. Hindi sila nagsabi may material error o wala. Basta stating that an opinion of the firm's financial status could not be determined. So there are reasons. No? Kalimitan yung scope limitation. No, halimbawa, pwede siyang hindi natapos yung audit mo o kaya meron nag-hinder sa audit process, merong hindi nagbigay ng data o kaya ayaw ibigay sa iyo yung mga kailangan mong data. No? So kalimitan, paano ka makakapag-gather ng evidence? No? So, kumbaga, hindi naging maganda environment mo as an auditor to conduct the audit procedure itself. So, scope limitation mo. So, therefore, hindi mo na siya natapos yung audit. O tumigil ka na. And therefore, you state na you cannot determine whether the company prepared the financial statement fairly. Matawag doon. Na, kumbaga, fairly presented. Okay? Ayun yun. Now, and that's the last step. So, last na yun. Opinion, phase 5. Then, ayun na. Tapos na tayo. Overall view ng audit process. Okay? So, thank you very much, guys, for tentatively listening to me. Bye!